Welcome back, everybody, to Sports Nightly. I'm John Baylor, sitting in very temporarily for Greg and Ben. We want to bring on a gentleman who is one of 6 brand new inductees to the University of Nebraska Hall of Fame. He is the lone coach in this year's 2020 class. For 23 years, he was the head coach of the University of Nebraska women's volleyball team. From his estate in Fort Collins, Colorado, here's head coach Terry Pettit. Coach, how are you?
Does estate mean a couch?
Well, we picture you comfortably relaxing in your retirement, though we know, even though it's been stunning 20 years since you were in charge, that you remain active, but we think of you comfortably relaxing up there in the mountains. Is that a fair picture?
Yeah, it's a good picture. I can see the mountains from here, and we've got a beautiful day, and we're usually, weather-wise, about a day and a half ahead of Lincoln, so this should be coming your way.
Now, Coach, 694 wins. My initial reaction was, how are you not yet in the Nebraska Hall of Fame? I mean, this Hall of Fame seems tougher to get into than Cooperstown. So congratulations on this. What does it mean to you?
Well, you got to remember, I don't think Coach Devaney and Coach Osborne got in until 3 years ago. So this Hall of Fame was began long after I left Nebraska, and happy to be in it. Anytime you're in a Hall of Fame with Coach Devaney and Coach Osborne, that's a very select group. So I was pleased with John's call and looking forward to coming back in early September.
Coach Cook called Coach Pettit just yesterday with the news. Now, going back to 1977, when your 23 years began, really, women's volleyball was in its infancy, certainly at the collegiate level. We were still 4 years away from the NCAA actually sanctioning it, and it was really controlled by an elite group of teams, USC, UCLA, Long Beach, Hawaii, Pacific. Was the grand vision, hey, how do we join that elite group, or was it something simpler? Let's just get better every day and see where this leads.
I think the original vision was let's stay employed every day. And then, as time evolved, and certainly the goal was to become competitive with the top teams in the country. And I think I started to realize in the early '80s that was possible, but certain things had to happen. And one of them was we had to create an environment that could attract recruits, because the West Coast was selling volleyball as a lifestyle, that you went to schools that were close to the beach and wore sunglasses and flip-flops, and that's what, you had to be a part of that to play volleyball. So particularly in the mid to late 80s, I believe that if we could create an environment where kids would want to play, then we could go out and get a Gracia Lee Sapero or a Fiona Nepo. So the core of our recruiting was still Nebraska and surrounding states. But you really can't compete for national championships unless it's a very unusual year, without also pulling in an international level player from somewhere else. And so that became our philosophy. In '86, we played for the national championship, but that team was almost all local kids. Kathy DeBoer from Norris, and Enid Schoenweiss from Beatrice, Karen Dahlgren from Bertrand, Virginia Stair from Waco. I believe the only two starters from outside the state, Tisha Delaney from Missouri and Lori Endicott from Missouri. But we we were fortunate in having great athletes in Nebraska, and we're able to supplement that with people like Amber Holmquist, or going out and getting a truly elite performer who wanted to be part of what Nebraska was doing.
23 seasons, 21 conference championships. Terry Pettit won the conference championship in his first 16 years at the helm of Nebraska volleyball, and in all your years in the Big Eight, you won all the conference championships ever except for one. Now, one of my first memories as an announcer was in '94, and the team was loading up on the bus just out front of the Coliseum, and we were headed to Missouri. And suddenly I noticed Billy Winsett, one of your star players on that team, was not on the bus. And I just asked, "Where's Billy?" And you said, "Oh, she's got a big test tomorrow." And we took off without Billy. That to me gave me a sense of just how dominant your team was in the Big Eight conference. Was that a fair assessment? Basically, nearly every night, except maybe on the road at Colorado, did you just have this extreme confidence that you could win anytime?
Well, John, it may seem foolish, but I don't know that I ever entered a match where I didn't see a path to win. I didn't focus on that, but I never recall entering a match where I didn't feel we had the better setter, or entering a match where I didn't feel we had as good or better athletes. So if you take those two things, it doesn't guarantee a win, because certainly we played a lot of teams that, had extraordinary coaching and extraordinary personnel, but I never felt we would be overmatched. And that has a lot to do with the athletes that the state produced. Volleyball requires quickness. It does not require speed. It requires arm speed. It does not require foot speed. You have to have two quick steps. And if you have two quick steps and you have size and arm speed, then you can be trained to play at an elite level. And we had plenty of size in Nebraska. We have, if you look at the people who settled the state, Czechs, Germans, Swedes, big-boned people. And that continues until this day. So if we were looking for a 400-meter relay team, we had some of those too. Karen Dahlgren, Enid Schoenweiss. But in volleyball, it's about arm speed, vision, and quickness. And that fit the MO of the athletes that we had available. So we didn't have to go to, say, Florida or Texas to gain something that wasn't available to us, at least on a regional basis. When we went to Puerto Rico for Grace Lisa Perro, or we went to Hawaii for Fiona Nepo, it was for a truly extraordinary player. Because if there was somebody as good locally, it made more sense to recruit the player that grew up in the culture. And that the culture certainly had a lot to do with our success. The players were not afraid of hard work. Many of them came from farms or ranches where the crop didn't always come in, and they were exceptional. Some of them, ironically, maybe better athletes than their brothers, because their brothers were playing sports that relied more on speed. Where again, if you're a wideout in football, you better have great speed. But in volleyball, it was just two steps. So a 6'5" female athlete from South Central Nebraska who had quick steps had the potential to be an international player that would be equivalent to an NBA player. her brother might be 6'8", but he might not have the quickness or the speed to be able to play in the NBA.
Coach Terry Pettit, quickly, when Nebraska fans, when those who care so much about your sport of volleyball think of Terry Pettit, what do you hope we think about?
Not much, really. There are a lot of things that please me. One of the things that pleases me is that we got this succession right, that, handing the baton to John Cook, who personality-wise and maybe even coaching philosophy is different. I think people make the mistake. We want to get a coach. If a coach retires, we want to get a coach that says the same thing or has the same personality as the previous coach. And that's really not what you want. What you want is somebody that's talented and somebody that is not going to let go and somebody that is going to adjust and learn through the decades. I was saying to someone earlier today, the women who played for me for Nebraska in 1977 saw a different coach than the coach in 83, and then there was a different coach in 89, a different coach in 98. Because if you're going to be successful, you have to keep adjusting. And one of the adjustments we've seen is that when I began coaching, I was a transactional coach. But as I evolved as a coach, I became much more of a transformational coach, someone interested in collaborating, someone interested in assistants doing more, someone interested in listening more to players. When somebody's, and I'm sure that's true with everybody. Certainly Coach Osborne was transformational in his development. And I certainly learned a lot from just being around him and watching how he did things. John Cook has been transformational. If you watch John's demeanor during a volleyball match today, it's considerably different than it was 10 years ago. So that's how you survive. That's how you evolve in the coaching business. And you have to be fortunate to have exceptional assistant coaches. And Kathy Noth was an exceptional assistant coach, and John Cook was exceptional, and Jay Potter and Nikki Best and Val Novak. They were all great assistants in that they had strengths that I didn't have.
Terry Pettit, one of 6 inductees into the 2020 class of the University of Nebraska Athletic Hall of Fame. So well deserved. I'm John Baylor. Greg and Ben return. We come right back. More Sports Nightly after you hear this.